stakeholder definition is basically a way to define what stakeholder really is, a term really stands for. And we would just have a look at it first before we move on into the different types of stakeholders and then some of the examples of stakeholders in the next few slides. So stakeholder definition is what we would have a look at. So who is a stakeholder? So stakeholder can be any individual, and more importantly, not just an individual, but any group or an entire organization. It need not be a person. It can be a group, a body, an association, an organization, a company, a firm. It can be anything, right? So it can be a structured organization like a company, or it could be just, for example, sometimes even the community of people, like the neighborhood is also a kind of a group. Again, that's a stakeholder. So the community of people within your neighborhood could be a stakeholder in that context, in one context. So it's important that we realize that stakeholders need not be people, one person or one human user all the time. It could be any group of people. It could be an organization. It could be anything. It could be kind of a unit or an entity within itself. But what is this got to do with our product, our offering, our solution? They, or this particular organization or unit or an individual, would be influenced by the results of the project, by the outcome that we're going to deliver from our project. So they're going to have some kind of influence through this. So they're going to be influenced by that, either directly or indirectly. Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's rather indirect way. And it could be also, the impact is basically, it could be also in different ways. It could be directly positive. It is going to help them in some way. It's going to support them. It's going to give them more power. It's going to cut the costs in doing some things. It could be actually more functional or more usable way of doing some work, which are all positive aspect of it. But then also there's another side of it, which is a negative angle. So it could mean that even the solution or the offering that we're going to work on could actually impact them in a negative way as well. Sometimes it's not all positive. It could be a threat to the environment. It could be increase in the traffic. For example, if you're trying to build a huge apartment complex, a huge number of flats in a neighborhood, it could be a big problem for the neighborhood as a stakeholder, because that could mean that they would have more traffic on the road, more consumption of the resources like schools, seats being occupied, hospital beds being occupied with this huge complex that you're planning to build, for example. So that is going to, the perception could be amongst the neighborhood stakeholders is that it could, have a negative impact on them. So again, it could be true or it could be false. That's a different thing. But again, that's their perception of the potential impact of your solution or project that you're working on. And a stakeholder is any person having a stated or a believable concern or stake in a policy matter. Again, it's important, as we just discussed, it could be a perception, it could be a reality, or it could be a perceived notion of that particular impact. It need not be true. That's something which we can discuss later, and that could be coming through with discussions, negotiations, and a lot of other things. But end of the day, the stakeholders, as what we call as worldview, they have some view about something, and that's what, as business analysts, we need to understand. What is their worldview? What is the perception? What is their potential understanding of the impact that we're going to have with our solution on their work, on their life, on their lifestyle, on their piece of product, or on their existing way of working. So it could be anything. That's pretty much is what is important for us to understand the concept of a stakeholder. So a stakeholder, it's important that we just kind of have a quick recap. A stakeholder could be anybody, any individual, any person, or it could be any group of people, or it could be a huge organization, either structured like a company, a firm, or it could be unstructured, like perhaps a group of people, a community of neighborhood or something like that. They're not perhaps even registered as a community or as a society. Still, you have to treat them as a neighborhood, as a stakeholder. And then stakeholders, again, what we were talking about in the context of the impact could be that the impact on them or the perceived impact could be both positive or negative. It need not be always positive. It could be a negative way as well. Sometimes it could be positive, sometimes it could be negative. And again, what is important is the perception or the stakeholders' view of how this solution is going to affect them in their work or personal life. That's important, again, to be considered. So that is very, very important. So this definition of stakeholder is really critical when we try and start any initiative, any project, a program, process re-engineering initiative, anything, new product development, an application. We need to understand this context of stakeholders. And again, one more thing that we need to consider is whether the stakeholders could be internal to our organization, to what we're working on. It could be our own team members or the other team members within our organization. It could be quality control, quality assurance people. It could be senior management. It could be the process improvement people, the SQC, SPC, the statistical process control, or it could be the quality assurance persons. All of these are internal stakeholders. And then there's an external stakeholder, and those are the people, those are stakeholders who are outside our own organization. They could be the suppliers, they could be the regulators, they could be the competitors, for example, sometimes even the competitors in terms of their offerings or even parallel offerings or competing offering like ours. They could potentially hold a stake in terms of how our own solution is shaping up. So again, that's another thing. So we need to be conscious of that, whether it is internal or external. We need to identify all the potential stakeholders.